"I don't like anything here at all," said Frodo. "Step or stone, breath or bone. Earth, air and water all seem accursed, but so our path is laid." "Yes, that's so," said Sam. "And we shouldn't be here at all if we'd known more about it before we started. But I suppose it's often that way. The brave things in the old tales and songs, Mr. Frodo. Adventures, as I used to call them. I used to think they were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for. Because they wanted them. Because they were exciting and life was a bit dull. A kind of sport, you might say. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered, or the ones that stay in the mind. Folk seem to have just been landed in them. Usually their paths were laid out that way, as you put it. But I expect they had lots of chances, like us, of turning back. Only they didn't. And if they had, we shouldn't know, because they've been forgotten. We hear about those as just went on, and not all to a good end, mind you. At least, not to what folk inside a story and not outside it I'd call a good end. You know, coming home and finding things all right, though not quite the same, like old Mr. Bilbo. But those aren't always the best tales to hear, though they may be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of a tale we've fallen into." "I wonder," said Frodo, "but I don't know. And that's the way of a real tale. Take any one that you're fond of, you may know, or guess what kind of tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know, and you don't want them to." "No, of course not. Beren now, he never thought he was going to get that Silmaril from the Iron Crown and Fangorra, and yet he did, and that was a worse place and a blacker danger than ours. But that's a long tale, of course, and goes on past the happiness and into grief and beyond it. And the Silmaril went on and came to Eärendil, and why, sir, I never thought of that before. You've got some of that light of it in that star glass that the lady gave you. Why, to think of it, we're in the same tale still. It's going on. Don't the great tales never end?" "No, they never end as tales," said Frodo. "But the people in them come and go when their part's ended. Our part will end later, or sooner. And then we can have some rest and some sleep," said Sam. He laughed grimly. "And I mean just that, Mr. Frodo. I mean plain ordinary rest and sleep, and waking up to a morning's work in the garden. I'm afraid that's all I'm hoping for all the time. All the big important plans are not for my sort. Still, I wonder if we shall ever be put into songs or tales. We're in one, of course, but I mean put into words, you know, told by the fireside or read out of a great big red book with red and black letters, years and years afterwards. And people will say, 'Let's hear about Frodo and the Ring.' And they'll say, 'Yes, that's one of my favourite stories. Frodo was very brave, wasn't he?' Yes, my boy, the famousest of the hobbits, and that's saying a lot." "It's saying a lot too much," said Frodo, and he laughed, a long, clear laugh from his heart. Such a sound had not been heard in those places since Sauron came to Middle-earth. To Sam, suddenly it seemed as if all the stones were listening and the tall rocks leaning over them. But Frodo did not heed them. He laughed again. "Why, Sam," he said, "to hear you somehow makes me as merry as if the story was already written. But you've left out one of the chief characters, Samwise the Stout-Hearted. I want to hear more about Sam, Dad. Why didn't they put more of his talk, Dad? That's what I like. It makes me laugh. And Frodo wouldn't have gotten very far without Sam. would he, Dad? Now, Mr. Frodo, said Sam, you shouldn't make fun. I was serious. So was I, said Frodo, and so I am. We're going on a bit too fast. You and I, Sam, are still stuck in the worst places of the story, and it is all too likely that some will say at this point, shut the book now, Dad. We don't want to read any more. Maybe, said Sam, but I wouldn't be the one to say that. Things done and over and made into a part of the great tales are different. Why? Even Gollum might be good in a tale. Better than he is to have by you, anyway. And he used to like tales himself once, by his own account. I wonder if he thinks he's the hero or the villain.